I'm Mike.
Hi, I'm Jesse.
And we're joined today by Mr. Paul Spurrier. So I know you through your directing work.
Right.
Mostly you're a director, you're an editor, you're a cameraman, you direct in both English and Thai, but I did my due diligence, I did some research, and I found out that you're a former child actor who appeared with Richard Harris and Richard Burton and Roger Moore, who are three of my big movie heroes.
Yes, it was a little time ago, it has to be said. Sort of like
just a little bit.
41 years ago or something. But,
in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing.
Also used to work for the Department of Defense, the Ministry of Defense, right?
Indeed. I've done everything that, will ever possibly pay me money to survive. Yes.
Hi, I'm Michael New. I'm an actor, producer, writer, and I got a background in engineering.
Hey, I'm Jesse Maddox. I'm an editor, musician, and owner of the best studio in Bangkok.
This is a show about people who are passionate about the fruits of their labor.
Welcome to Passion Fruit.
So the first question we usually kick off with on this show is, what's your passion?
What's my passion? I don't know whether I even like the word passion. I mean, I think I prefer the sort of word compulsion or obsession. Passion implies that, every day you get up and you say, oh, wow, today I'm going to paint a picture. Today I'm going to write a script. It's what I really want to do. Sure. And I don't think for me, it's not like that. For me, it's just I kind of have to. And most of the time I don't enjoy it very much. But if I don't do it, I miss it. So it's just it's just thing that you just...
So on this episode, we will be calling this Compulsion Fruit.
Compulsion Fruit.
Here we are again at Compulsion Fruit.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I like that. That's an interesting take on it. So far, we haven't heard that take on it.
Yeah.
They've gone right with the passion, but that actually makes a whole lot of sense.
I mean, I always wonder when you get people who canoe across an ocean or climb Everest. It can't be fun.
Right.
Whatever they say, and there's no way that freezing your fingers off and
is a passion.
Going 30 miles. What does passion even mean? I suppose it's it's a sort of very romanticized word for just madness, basically.
Well, it makes sense too, because when you think of, you can imagine that when you're talking about a heated sexual experience, you could say, okay, that's passion, right?
I think you could argue that.
You could draw, but then I guess working for 48 hours.
Occasionally, sex actually might be pleasurable.
Yeah, to some people, not me, but I find it disgusting and filthy.
Okay.
But I mean, I
He's
totally
obviously doing it right.
That's not how you do it. You're not supposed to be ashamed at the end. Damn it. Anyways, I get where you're coming from. So what's your compulsion?
Is that the quickest you've ever got to sex in one of these podcasts?
I think it is. That's a new record.
We might have
right
had it
here.
in the intro once, but
This is the official fastest sex reference that we've had on this show.
Well, thank you.
Yes, up top.
I'm glad I've raised the tone already.
yeah. Did we even get to what your non-passion but more
Yes. So
compulsion
what
is?
is your compulsion?
Oh, what is my non-passion? I've always been involved in some way or another in films. I mean, I think it all stretches back to, I don't know, I was something like 7, and my grandmother took me to see The Sound of Music at a big screen. I don't know whether it was big. I remember it as being absolutely massive. And of course, back then they probably were bigger, but...
Maybe even bigger than now, almost.
That's a big
yeah,
movie, too.
that's true.
Yeah.
And I remember that I was just so overwhelmed by this experience of, Julie Andrews, who, is everybody's passion, of course.
Yeah.
And so I cried so much that when I came home, my parents were quite concerned that I'd been abused or something. And
Julie
yeah. And when I woke up the next morning, my eyes were shut together. They were stuck by my congealed tears. And so I think that was the sort of moment when I really wanted to find out, how did you make a film, and what did it involve? How did it happen? And so in a way, everything I've done since has been to try and work that out.
So, in my little research that I did, you had appeared in a lot of films as a child. How did you get into that?
I think it was all part of the sort of same thing. I actually, bizarrely, became a champion tap dancer. And so I loved the old films of like Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly, and thought, wow, maybe I could get into films that way. And so I saw an advert aged about 8, I think, in a newspaper saying they were looking for a child actor, and I wrote off in my little scrawly rating, I want to be an actor or something. And strangely, they rang up my parents, and then I did get work, and it carried on from there. So
did you? He's older than you by a lot, but did you ever run into Christopher Walken?
No, I mean, I was in England, so I
Right.
wasn't really, in England, we didn't really have the same whole Hollywood thing.
Sure.
Unfortunately, there weren't, gangs of young girls trying to sort of,
Because
mob
he's
me on
quite the tap
streets.
dancer, right?
Well, he was a
That's
child
true.
star, child actor, and a championed dancer as a kid.
Yes.
So, but yeah, again, different country, different age.
Well, he's one of the ones. I mean, I always get a bit annoyed that when you think of whenever you read in newspapers about child actors, there are only a few stories.
Yeah.
One is the ones that on drugs and they've ruined their lives and they're lying in a heap under the dustbin somewhere. And then you get the ones who sort of say, "Oh, I didn't want to do it, and I was pressured by my parents, and I sued them because they stole all my money, and I messed up." And then you're the ones who sort of like, where are they now? And what are they doing? And I'm with you guys, so what happened.
Yeah.
So you're in the...
It's like the same as being under a dustbin.
I guess so. What are you doing on this show? You've actually got a career.
But no, I mean, that is a very boring story, really, because I really enjoyed doing
it's
it.
not.
I enjoyed the whole experience, and I wasn't, horribly abused, and I didn't take enough drugs, and so.
How would you say it affected your life growing up, having done movies? I mean, some of these were quite popular. Did that affect your school life at all, or?
Yeah, I mean, I detested school and detested children, and so for me, I mean, when I did have to go back to school after being in films, I mean, I was probably a vile child, because I'd be ringing up my agent in 2 days, get me out of here. I'll take any job, just get me away. So I mean, yeah, it changes your life without a doubt. But I mean, by the time I was 18. I'd been to Australia filming. I'd been all over Europe. I mean, I'd had sort of almost a whole career by the time I was 18. So I wouldn't give that up for anything.
Yeah.
I find it funny that you say you detest children, because one of the films I saw of yours recently was Forest, which, in my opinion, was one of the best performances out of children that I'd seen in a very long time. So you must like him just a little bit to bring that
Knows
out.
how to get what he wants out of him.
Well, I think that, what would I say? I think we tend to have a very sort of romantic, idealized view of children. That we look at, oh, aren't they sweet and aren't they lovely? And, often kids are totally vile.
Absolutely, I'm with you on that.
I have a son, so I know.
Shout out. Hope you're watching.
So, I mean, I suppose, I mean, maybe that's why people thought that some of those performances were real, because, both of the children ended up killing people in the film, so they weren't exactly your idealized, innocent, naive children.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Well, definitely worth watching, though. I think it's on Netflix, right?
That's right,
Yeah.
indeed.
And so with the Ministry of Defense, that's actually something we have in common. For a short amount of time, I used to work for the Ministry of Defense in Canada. I used to be a civil engineer, and I did 3D AutoCAD design for them. And
So you were part of the whole military machine.
Just a little part.
Are you okay with this?
I mean, he's quite a machine.
is it classified? Can you talk about it?
Well, I was kind of coerced into it in a funny way. We had a company in England making films, commercials, marketing videos, anything that people wanted making. And I remember we were once at this really rather unpleasant conference. We had been asked to make a like a credit roll of names. With this fanfare music and against a sparkly background with fireworks going off. And the client sent us all the names, and we made this very simple video. Although back then, sort of, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it actually wasn't that simple.
No,
now you just do
very
it on
complex.
you can do it on your mobile phone, but
Right.
back then it involved a
Beta
room
tapes.
full of equipment. And so we went to this conference, and as we were walking in, we saw some people whose name badges. I thought, oh, look, that's one of the names we put on this credit roll. And so it was great. And they played this video with the fanfare music, and then the guy at the end said, all of these people who just saw your names, you underperformed this year, and you're all fired. Please hand in your car keys and leave. So we realized we were part of a sort of firing conference. And we didn't feel totally good about that. And my business partner said to me, it makes you wonder, what wouldn't you do? And I said, well, I've always thought that if it's legal and if there's a need, and I believe in free speech and free expression, that if a video needs to be made, you should do it. You shouldn't sort of censor yourself and your client. He said, I don't believe you. There are things you wouldn't do. You wouldn't make a training video for a weapon of mass destruction, I'm sure. I said, no, absolutely. If it paid, I'd do it. I wasn't actually being truthful, but I was winding him up. But of course, the next week somebody rang me up and said, I'm calling from the Ministry of Defense. Will you help us make a video about these weapons? So I had to sort of live by my mantra.
Well, Disney did that too, so
That's true.
you're in
right.
good company.
No, though actually only a small amount of the work I did for the Ministry of Defense was promoting weapons of mass destruction and biological warfare. There were also nice things, small arms, small machine guns.
Weapons of not that much mass destruction.
Yeah.
Weapons
Much
of,
least.
of forced peace. So when did you make the transition from acting to producing and directing?
Well, there comes a point, of course, when you're, no longer, small and cute and you get, spots.
Well, that hasn't happened yet.
And so you really then, as an actor, you suddenly have to decide, am I going to take a whole new leap and sort of redefine whoever I am as an adult? And I'd always been more interested in what was going on, behind the camera. I always found that fascinating. And so that for me was just a very easy transition. As the work gradually declined, I sort of...
The work gradually increased.
Exactly.
At the same time.
Yes. Yeah.
And what would you say is maybe the biggest challenge you've had behind the camera?
Oh, wow. The biggest challenge I've had behind the camera. I don't know. I mean, I think that everything is always a challenge. I mean, nothing is ever easy. Sometimes the simplest of things become difficult, trying to find the location. And then when you turn up to the location, they're busy or they forgot. And so you haven't got the location. Finding actors is difficult. It's always, I suppose if you're doing it right, it's always a challenge. If you're just taking a lazy option, it's probably easy.
Okay.
So
That's a good way of putting it.
when you how long were you working outside of Thailand before you came here?
Well, I came here first in 1999. So I would
Right when Prince was partying at his hardest.
Yes, indeed. Indeed, I
Okay.
know all about that.
That's right. So what brought you here?
I had no understanding, interest, or knowledge of Thailand whatsoever. I had eaten one Thai meal in my life. I couldn't have found it on a...
Pad Thai.
More than most British people.
I couldn't have found it on a globe. I knew nothing. And then I remember my girlfriend dumped me. And it was about, say,
Oh, that'll
August,
do it.
August, September 1999. And we were due to go away for Millennium New Year. And so suddenly, I had no idea. And everybody made out. I mean, the Millennium New Year was just. None of you were born, of course. I forgot that. But if you were old like me, you remember Millennium New Year.
I remember.
That was a good party. That was a good one.
Yeah, I was drinking Pepsis.
Yeah.
But everybody made this out. This is going to be, a seminal moment which you'd remember for the rest of your life. And I realized I had nothing to do. And so then, thankfully, a friend Matt rang me up from the BBC, and he said, I'm going to go to Thailand for Christmas and New Year. And we're filming a documentary for the BBC. And I can't get any crew because they're either way too expensive or they're on holiday or they're busy. And so they've given me permission to use somebody from outside. So I immediately said,
Yes.
I don't know where it is. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm there. And I just had a great time. I mean, mainly, funny enough, sort of professionally, in terms of what we shot, the scenery, the crew, it was great. And I found very inspiring. And right then at that moment, I thought, I've got to come back here and tell stories. I mean, I think that I had been all my life in England. And after a while, I think when you're in a place, you sort of learn to just understand it. You understand how everybody fits into society. You learn all the types. You meet somebody and you instantly say, I know who you are. I know what you do. I know everything about you. And I suddenly came to a place where I knew nothing. I was totally an alien in this alien world. And that was actually kind of refreshing and a new sort of area to explore. And the thing that keeps me in Thailand, funny enough, is that I still don't understand almost any more about it than I did when I first came. I mean, we try and analyze what's going on. How does Thailand work? How do Thai people think? How do I relate to them? What do we have in common? And very often I'm just end up saying I have no idea.
I still don't know.
And that's and I like that because it keeps it exciting.
It's kind of a reoccurring
Where
thing.
every day is different from the last, and it doesn't become so routine.
Yeah.
Well, and I had a friend who unfortunately passed away, but he always said he loved Thailand because every day it found new ways to surprise him. And I still find that's true. You pick up the newspaper or you look on the internet and read something about Thailand. Seriously? Seriously?
Yeah.
Every day you still find ways to do that.
And then as a filmmaker, I mean, personally for me, when I was living in LA and then specifically working in Hollywood, I wasn't expecting that when I came here to get away from it all, I wasn't expecting that a few years later that I'd even find a more tightly knit, interesting film community world process that I hadn't even experienced back in America, that in some ways was stronger and I liked more. And it was still in film, but I was in Bangkok, Thailand. I really wasn't expecting that, and I'm sure you've experienced that a little bit yourself.
No, absolutely. No, I mean, I think it is inspiring, and it's really great that there is now developing a community, and more so than when I first came here.
Sure.
Not that the people weren't always here, but I do think it's rather nice now that there are different groups that are doing sort of meetups and
Free
internet
screen
groups.
and stuff.
Well, I hope we were part of that, but when I first came, it was very diverse and nobody spoke to each other, sort of thing. And now, actually, there is a community developing, which is great.
Yeah. Do you think part of that has to do with social media and making it easier to connect?
Yes.
Thanks, Facebook.
And it's interesting. Me being half Thai, my experience is maybe a little bit different from you, but I had planned since I was young to make a go of engineering from a pretty young age, and I was going to be an engineer in Canada. And for me, anyways, one of the big things that I liked about Thailand, and when I decided to move here, I still didn't know I was going to be an actor. That was just a happy coincidence. I always wanted to be one. I just didn't think you could do it because I had grown up under the assumption that 1 in 100.
So
It's
you
a
were
terrible
going to have
career
a
choice.
good career in engineering, and you instead chose to be an
and honestly, well,
poor
instead
parents.
I know my mom at the time was distraught, and she said, "What am I going to tell my friends?" My dad said,
Make something
"You
up.
can be whatever you want, as long as I don't have to give you money."
Yeah. I mean,
Totally
which is
understandable.
that's totally understandable
I get that.
too.
there were things she could
But,
have advised her. What should she tell her friends?
but-
She could always tell her friends you died or something, you know.
Be creative.
But I think for me the one thing that really stood out is, I mean, engineering. I never disliked engineering. I didn't love engineering. And the one thing that stuck out to me was that in Canada and in England and in America, you have this real work mentality, where someone will show off about how they didn't take a single sick day all year, and how they worked so hard and they made their company so much money. And then you come here and they value happiness more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a kind of emotional vampire, I feed off of that happiness. And so being surrounded by people who just enjoy life and value life, yeah, that it's infectious. And then and that's what I enjoy about being out here. And plus, as you say, like just the sheer amount of opportunity and different things that you can work on. Who knew that I could be an actor and that it would be so much fun?
Yeah.
Indeed.
And you know,
That should be
speaking,
the name of this program. Who knew? Turning to you, how did you disappoint your parents?
Oh, I dropped out of college and I started working for a porno company. That's what I could have started earlier than that for the disappointment, but that's where it got official. But you know, actually, strangely enough, my parents didn't. They were very much like, as long as you are doing what you love, and kind of like he said, you're not causing us to lose money on you and spend on you, then go for it. I mean, they also knew that I had some.
But they must have been like Californian hippies or something.
My mother was more of an artist. My father was kind of a book smart libertarian, kind of like, don't get in the way of a. So I was, in one way I was lucky with my parents, but on the other hand, they weren't authoritarian enough to instill enough. I had to kind of learn that on my own about how to really kind of like be a man, if you know.
well, at
what I
least
mean.
you learned it. That's more than
Yeah.
you can say for a lot of
After
people.
about 30 years, I kind of
Yeah.
started picking it up. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
So you've been in the film industry for a while now. How would you say technology has changed the way we make film?
Oh, I mean, it's changed. The extraordinary thing was that when you go back to about 27, 28.
This is when you were just starting?
When I was just starting, that's right. And,
The ripe age of 18.
it was a little before that, because I remember when sound came in. But, that was when we had... there was already colour. Colour had been around for a while in different ways, and then sound came in. And you had 35mm film, and okay, the sound was sort of perfected and over the ages, but you basically then had the technology in place that didn't really change until 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
No, yeah, you're right.
Nothing had changed for 60 years.
Yeah.
And then it changed just incredibly quickly. And, I mean, it was one of the things that prompted me to make my previous film, The Forest, which we were talking about earlier, was I was doing a lecture for some film students. And I was saying to them that, film school is all very well, but the best way to learn is to go out with your DSLR or even your iPhone or whatever it is and make a film. And there is no excuse anymore for not going out and shooting. Mm-hmm. We always had the excuse, well, we have to have 16mm film and it's, $100 a roll, and then you have to have it processed, and then you have to have it transferred and printed. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you couldn't do it. But nowadays, there's no excuses. So I gave this wonderful, pompous little speech about how you must go out and follow your dream and make something. And then, of course, one smart-ass kid sort of said, so what about you, sir? How come you haven't made a film in 10 years? And
I'll learn you little snot.
I'm busy teaching you, idiot.
Yeah.
And actually, it was the best thing he could have said, because I suddenly thought, well, actually, he's so right. And I was still actually mentally stuck in the old way. My previous film had been shot on 35mm film, and I realized, actually, no, one can go out and do it in a different way. So that is, of course, incredibly, liberating, democratizing. It means that, anybody can go and make a film. I don't think it's all good. I do think one of the problems is we have YouTube and we have all these ways to get your film out there, and yet there is just so many people. There's so many people making so many things. To get yours to stand out is very difficult. You know, film festivals that used to get 30 films sent to them are now getting
30,000.
Well, I believe Sundance gets sort of 4,000 films sent to them in a year.
Yeah.
How do they even watch them physically? And what do you have to do to make your film one of the sort of 20 that stand out of 4?
Yeah, aside from just making a good one, aside from that, just what do you have to do to get it into the right hands and eyes? Yeah.
And, you know, and some of it's tough when you work on something for 2 years and you work on every aspect of the sound and the music and the shots and the editing. And then, you know, you go online and find that, what did I see the other day? Baby Shark has over 1 billion views.
Right.
You know, like, seriously.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, you got to wonder how much is, not literally, but bought. How much do people buy attention for their film or for their project?
Yeah, where a social media following is now such a
Because I mean, in a
huge part
sense,
of
you
the
can
industry.
buy YouTube views, you can buy SoundCloud views, you can buy Spotify views. You can literally go to a website, pay a small amount of money, and get 30,000 to 1 million views of something. Granted, it's not organic and it doesn't bring
You
your
can tell
project.
by our view count that we don't do that.
We don't do shit. We got like 8 views, bitch. All organic.
No, I mean, this whole idea of, you know, what makes something go viral. And my worry is that isn't, as you said, often, you know, the best thing.
Yeah.
You know, was Gangnam Style the best song of that year? Really?
Eh.
Or that strange man with apple pen and pineapple
Right,
pen?
right.
It was
know,
weirdly
why?
captivating.
Oh,
and I don't.
Sure, but was it the best thing?
It wasn't the best, but yeah, I see what you mean. Like what becomes viral isn't necessarily the best piece of entertainment.
And I guess because
But,
viral isn't really a ruler to greatness or
Yeah, and you
talent.
touched on an interesting topic here in the sense that you have these platforms like YouTube or Netflix even where the way we consume media has changed, and so I think the way we produce media has to change too. Like on YouTube, it often favors the people who churn out more content rather than the people who churn out the best content.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, and I think one of the most popular video is with the lady who unboxes Disney toys.
Oh yeah,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
I know
yeah.
they're getting like 20 million hits per
Yeah.
view.
Yeah,
or
that's
toys.
insane.
Yeah, people unboxing. I mean, people even have their own YouTube names now. It's called like the Grand Unboxer or like.
Do you think we should do that?
We
Well,
really
next-
should.
We should be making one where
Anyway,
you
we'll
We'll have you
rebox.
back on. We'll have a bunch of boxes full of I don't know random
Yeah.
shit.
God knows what.
a Disney princess,
And we'll
doll,
just-
and
we'll
we
just-
could unopen it
Yeah.
together.
We'll hashtag the crap out of the video with all the most popular hashtags. Hashtag like for like. You know, no filter
I'm gonna
Fridays.
start a
or
channel
whatever.
where I just put things in boxes. That's
Yeah.
all. That's all it is. Just boxing things up.
boxing things up and then we send them to those YouTube
to an
celebrities.
unboxer.
Yeah. So you've switched formats now. You've hit the digital movie making age. What would you like to do next? What's next for Paul Spurrier?
Well, look, the sad thing is that even though, you know, the costs have come down enormously, you can never really ignore the fact that you have to at some point go out and get it sold. And that's, I mean, that is the hardest part. There are 3 parts to making a film. One is, you know, raising the money to make it. One is making it, and then the other is selling it and trying and making the money back for the idiots who gave you the money in the first place. So, sorry, the gracious investors.
We'll cut that bit.
No, we'll leave it at it.
No, I mean, and if you do that, and if you make that cycle work, and you know, and your investors are happy that they've done it and they've put their money in and they haven't lost their house, then hopefully they'll do it again, and so you get to do it, you know, second or hopefully third time. So I mean, that's always the tricky thing, because do you make something that is sort of commercial or more obviously commercial,
Right.
or do you make something that you feel is more interesting to you or more inspiring, a more independent story. And in a way, and that's a tough decision. I mean, imagine a baker who makes cakes saying,
These are boring.
Making fairy cakes with pink icing is boring. I'm going to make my cakes with slivers of real frog, and because that won't be boring.
They have frogs that you can lick and get high. That might be a very interesting cake.
Maybe we've hit
That's
something.
a special cake.
Or so I hear.
But when are you being self-indulgent?
Yeah.
Right? And nobody's just going to buy your crappy cakes and you'll go bust. And when are you just sort of being boring and doing stuff like everybody else is?
Well, right now, you are on multiple platforms. We'll be releasing this on a few different platforms. And there might be some investors out there who will watch this.
They won't now because I just called them idiots. So.
Well, not these ones.
No, these ones.
Other ones.
Exactly. Yes.
These are smart because they're watching our podcast.
These awesome investors watching right now. Is there a project that you'd maybe like to pitch or something that's mulling around in the back of your mind?
Oh, I mean, there's always tons of things going on. I mean, my latest project was a TV series for which we've made 3 episodes. And obviously what I'd really like to do next is to continue that and to do the next 3 episodes.
Has that been
and
released, or is that still in the works?
We've finished it only recently, and it's going to be sort of launched, if you like, at one of the big television markets starting in about 10 days' time.
What's the name of that?
The television market or the project? Or both of them.
Both of them.
Both of them. The project's called Eulenia.
Eulenia.
And so, yes, the idea is to now go out and try and sell it.
Great.
So I had the great fortune to be in this project where I
forgot for a
played
second. Yes,
security
you did.
guard number 1. It was a non-speaking role, so it wasn't.
Well, you were number 2. That's great. You're number 1.
It was number 1. Yes. And that brings me to my next
you did
question.
a lot of eye acting.
I tried.
I think because I think you got left, right, up, and down. I think.
You got all of them.
It's all cut in the final version though.
Just staring straight like a doe.
But that brings me to my next question, which is, as an actor for a very long time, how do you think that's changed your approach to directing?
Good question. I mean, directing is one of those odd tasks, or filmmaking, in that generally, like when you're at school, there are the kids who go into like the maths and the science and the techie things, and then there are the kids who do English or the arts or whatever. And I think filmmaking is the strange area where you actually have to have bits of both. You just met Al, I believe, who's the ultimate techie guy who just loves the equipment. And even if he didn't make anything, he'd have a room full of equipment. And I'm being nice to Al. I love Al. But, and we all have that. The first thing I did when I came in, was looked at the microphone. Oh, where'd you get that? And what does that do? I mean, we all have that in us.
Sure. The techie in us.
The techie. But also, you have to have a bit of the sort of I don't know, I hesitate to use the word artist, but you have to have that other side to you.
Sure.
And I suppose that's always the tricky balance. And I hope it helps me, having been an actor, in that, to me, still the most important thing is the performances, because to be honest, when you watch something, what are you looking at? You're really not looking particularly at the camera angle or the lighting. That's all just, what makes it work. What you are always looking at is an actor. And so I think whether it works or not is down to, certainly the script is very important, what he's actually doing and what he's saying, but that performance makes it work or not.
If you hear drumming in the background, it's because we're next door to a music store, and I think right now probably one of their clientele is testing.
Yeah, I think we ran out on our 2 podcast limit before they had to test out their drum.
What's the most fun job you ever did as an actor?
It was always most rewarding to work with the directors who enjoyed working with actors, of course. I remember when I was about 10, having to play the scene where my father came in and told me that my mother had died. And the script said, and he cries. And so we are in the rehearsal room and we rehearse it. I do my best, crying, acting. And the director then came over and he said, I wanted to try it again. He said, this time don't cry. And I said, well, my father's just told me my mother's died. It seemed I might want to cry. And he said, yeah, but you've got to remember your father he's a soldier. He's very senior in the army. He's always been very disciplined. You would know as a boy that, you shouldn't cry in front of your father, that he has these expectations. And he said, and I'll tell you another trick. He said, if you cry, the audience don't have to, because you're doing it for them. But if you are being brave and holding it in, the audience will be more likely to cry for you. And those things, when you worked with great directors like that, something quite simple that made you think again.
Yeah.
You realize how much a director is capable of working with an actor to shape a performance and have a direct effect upon the audience. So those were the things that, were really inspiring.
I mean, I'm learning something from that right now.
I know.
Because
I had to put that down.
I'm thinking about it, and I think, well, yeah, that
makes
is
a lot of
is
sense.
true.
Yeah.
Because then you don't have that emotional release from the character, and then you have to get it, I guess, from yourself.
What do we got for, in a general sense, the future of Paul Spurrier in terms of the film world? Do we have anything that we can talk about that you got coming up that we're able to hear about, or is it all top secret James Bond stuff?
No, I mean, there's nothing that's secret. I mean, you're always... It's funny, I still feel like I'm only just starting out. I want to make another 20 films in my life.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
I still... my first 2 films in Thailand were both Thai language. And that's a tough market nowadays. Thai films are not doing that well. But, I still think there are real Thai stories that I have fun as a Westerner exploring and finding and dealing with.
Well, I think we've got a good amount of time now. Thank you so much for being on the show. Really, really appreciate you coming out.
Compulsion fruit.
Next
Coming
time on Compulsion Fruit, we'll have Paul back and we'll open a bunch of boxes of random stuff. And what else do people do nowadays?
They just box and open
They
boxes.
just open boxes. It doesn't really matter what's in it. That's what we're gonna do. Okay.
Later. Woo!